morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Society. Are you all awake?
Yes.
You guys did great. It worked. My name's Kelly Crocker and I'm one of the ministers here. Today I'm joined by my colleague, the Reverend Kelly Asbruth Jackson, and the worship team of Linda Warren, Heather Thorpe, Drew Collins, and Daniel Carnes, and a very special welcome to the singers and the parents of our Cherub Choir and Choristers, and our soloists, Peyton and Jennifer Yancey. Thank you all. The vision of First Unitarian Society is growing souls, connecting with one another, and embodying our Unitarian Universalist values in our lives, in our community, and in our world. Now that's the vision statement we've been saying since Reverend Roger was with us 3 years ago. Do you like how I look at Kelly? I have no sense of time anymore. What year is it? Roger wrote those words for us when he was here so that we had something to state and welcome you with every week. And if you haven't seen it, today at our parish meeting, we will be looking at and voting on new mission and vision statements for First Unitarian Society. That is today at about 12:15 following our 11 a.m. service, and we hope that you will be able to join us. One other special announcement is that as of next Sunday, not only do we go to our one service a weekend at 10 a.m., our mask policy is also changing, that masks will now be encouraged but not required anywhere in the building, any of our programs, including the worship services. So that will change as of next Sunday. If you're visiting us today, after all that, welcome. We're so very glad that you are with us. If you'd like more information about our activities and programs, you can stop by the welcome table, which is located in the Commons to your right, next to the elevator. We also hope that you'll be able to stay and join us for coffee hour immediately following service, also held in the Commons. And to those of you joining us virtually, we welcome you as well. We're so very glad that you're with us, and we hope that you'll be able to take a moment and watch the announcement slides following the service so that you can find out more about what's happening here at First Unitarian. Today is our beloved flower communion. Yes! If you did not bring a flower, we'll be calling them up in a little bit. If you didn't bring a flower with you today, there are more out in the Commons that you can pick one and bring it back in so that you too can participate in this time-honored and beloved ritual of ours. And now, I invite you into a moment of silence as we center ourselves, bringing ourselves fully into this time, joining together once again in community. Children of the earth and sky, we are nurtured, sustained, given warmth and light from above and below.
Supported by Earth's strong, firm crust, we build our homes, till the fields, plant our gardens and orchards.
When we turn from self and seek to be aware, we will find holy light in human faces, in blossom, birdsong, and sky.
Then Earth is truly our home, and we are one with all Earth's creatures, parents of Earth's children yet to be.
And now I invite you to rise in all the ways we do and join together in our words of affirmation as we light our chalice. Within the heart of the flower, the fountain of beauty. Within the heart of the community, a fire that warms and dances. Within the heart of each of us, a spark of the spirit of life. Holy, holy, holy.
Please join in singing hymn number 305, De Colores. Oh, the colors, yes, the colors we see in the springtime with all of its flowers. All the colors, when the sunlight shines out through the rift in the clouds and it showers. All the colors, as a rainbow appears when a storm cloud is touched by the sun. All the colors abound for the whole world around and for everyone under the sun. All the colors, yes, the colors of people parading on by with their banners. All the colors, yes, the colors of pennants and streamers and plumes and bandanas. All the colors, yes, the colors of people now taking their place in the sun. All the colors abound for the whole world around and for everyone under the sun. All the colors, all the black and the white and the red and the brown and the yellow. All the colors of people who smile and shake hands and say hello. All the colors, yes, the colors of people who know that their freedom is won. All the colors abound for the whole world around and for everyone under the sun. De colores es visten los campos en la primavera. De colores son los pajaritos que vienen de afuera. De colores es el arco iris en que nos vestiu. Y por eso los grandes amores de muchos colores me gustan a mí.
Please be seated. In June of 1923, 100 years ago, Norbert Čapek and his wife Maya created the flower ceremony in the Unitarian congregation in Prague. Each member was asked to bring a single flower to the service, which began with the flowers being placed in a large vase in the middle of the hall. As explained in his sermon that day, the flowers symbolized the members, each unique and free, joining together in fellowship and accepting each other regardless of their differences. At the end of the service, each member was to take one flower, just as it comes, without making any distinction where it came from and whom it represents, to confess that we accept each other as brothers and sisters without regard to class, race, or other distinction, acknowledging everybody as our friend who is human and wants to be good.
Maya Čapek introduced the flower communion to the United States in the spring of 1940 at the First Parish Church in Cambridge. It is now widely celebrated by Unitarian Universalist congregations nearly everywhere. Soon after her husband's death, Maya Čapek wrote about what the flower ceremony meant to him. She wrote, "His only motivation was to stress and bring about brotherhood. As a symbol, he used flowers because in the name of a flower, no wars were ever waged. The flowers are used as symbols of the gifts which each person can make to the church and through the church to other persons. The exchange of flowers means that I shall walk without reservation with anyone, regardless of social status or former religious affiliation, as long as he is ready and willing to go along in search of truth and service.
And so we offer you now an opportunity to participate further in the shared gifts of our religious movement. Some of us brought flowers with us from home. Others hopefully had a chance to select a flower on their way in. There remain flowers just outside the doors if you would still like one. And in a moment, you'll be invited to come forward and contribute your flower to one of these two vessels up front here. And there is a third vessel at the rear of the balcony for those of you seated up there.
This gathering of flowers is meant to symbolize the beauty we create together by joining with one another in spiritual fellowship. At the close of the service, we'll move our assembled bouquets to the exits so that you can select a flower to take home with you, one that you did not bring. This symbolizes the way in which our different ideas, identities, and experiences, shared within the bonds of mutuality and right relationship, make each other's lives richer and more meaningful.
Remember that the flower you will hold in your hand as you leave today is the gift of a friend, brought in good faith to this community, and a reminder of the history we inherit as we walk the paths of our spiritual journey. May these earthly symbols remind us of a deeper truth, that in the days of our joys and in the days of our struggles, we are never truly alone.
Words of blessing from Norbert Čapek. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessing on these messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us amidst diversities of knowledge and gifts to be one in desire and affection and devotion to good and beauty. May they also remind us of the need for sharing and cooperation in our common quest for understanding. May we cherish friendship and community as one of life's most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage or separate us. May we realize that the efforts of all of us, the goodwill of all of us, are needed to heal and transform our troubled world. May we be strengthened by the knowledge that one Spirit, the Spirit of life, unites us, and may we endeavor together for a more joyful life for all. Amen. Same thing. I'll put these over here. All right. You read ahead.
What? What gave it away? Hi, guys. Everybody, come on down. Hi, good morning. Good morning. Hi, come on down. Happy Flower Communion. What? What came out of nowhere? He came out of nowhere. He knew what was coming. Hello. How's your morning? Good? That's a great song. I don't know that one. Well, we have a story today that is, of course, about flowers.
Pancakes.
Exactly. See it up there? Wanda's roses. And if you're up close here, Kelly's going to show you the pictures here, too, if it's hard to see the screen up there.
I'm gonna look at the screen anyway.
Good. Nice and big up there. One morning in May, on the way to school, Wanda noticed a bush growing in the empty corner lot at Fillmore and Hudson Streets. Do you see it? Can you see the bush in the corner? Mm-hmm. Okay. It must have been growing for a while because it was about 2 feet tall, and Wanda was surprised she hadn't noticed it before. But there it was, bare and thorny, and Wanda, who loved beautiful things, felt her heart beat faster. A rose bush, she said to herself. My very own rose bush. Do you think it's a rose bush? No. We're on slide 2, and they're already not convinced. Now, the rose bush didn't really belong to Wanda. But since nobody seemed to own the lot or the heaps of junk that were piled there, she decided she would care for this and make it her own. All during school, she thought about the rose bush. During art, she drew pictures of what it would look like in bloom. During library, she borrowed books on arranging flowers. We could have used those books this morning.
We could have, yeah.
And during science, she asked so many questions about how to take care of a rose bush that finally her teacher said she must stop asking questions about flowers and start thinking about electricity, which was what the lesson was really about. Now, after school, Wanda rushed to the rose bush. It was still bare and thorny. Maybe it needs more sun, she thought. So she put down her school bag and began dragging some of the trash out to the curb. Mrs. Turner, who was on her way to the store, stopped to help her carry a broken chair. Are you cleaning up the neighborhood, Wanda? She asked. That's a nice project. I'm not just cleaning, said Wanda. I'm helping my rose bush get sun so it will bloom. Your rose bush? Mrs. Turner asked. Where's your rose bush? Over there, Wanda said, pointing proudly to the bare, thorny bush. Oh, Wanda, I'm not so sure that's a rose bush, Mrs. Turner said. Sure it is. I've seen rose bushes in books. This is exactly what they look like before they bloom. You just wait. In a few weeks, this lot is going to be full of roses. Well, said Mrs. Turner, good luck with that. And as she walked away, Mrs. Turner thought, if that's a rose bush, then I'm the Queen of England. Now, the next day after school, Wanda hurried to her rose bush. It was still bare and thorny. Maybe it needs more air, Wanda thought. So she put down her school bag and began taking more of the trash out to the curb. Once I get all this trash out of here, nothing's going to block the air from getting to the rose bush. Mr. Claudel was on his way home from work, and he saw Wanda trying to drag an old door out of the lot, and he saw that she needed help. Are you cleaning up the neighborhood, Wanda? He asked. I'm not just cleaning, Wanda said. I'm getting rid of the trash, so my rose bush will have air and sun. A rose bush? Mr. Claudel asked, and Wanda showed him. I don't really know much about gardening, Wanda, but that's not a rose bush. Yes, it is, said Wanda, and in a few weeks, this lot is going to be filled with the sweetest smelling roses that you ever saw. Mr. Claudel helped a little bit more and shook his head, and walking away, he said, if that's a rose bush, then I'm the King of France. Now, every day after school, that week and the next, Wanda worked in the empty lot. Mrs. Giamatti, who lived in the apartment next door, gave Wanda trash bags for the old shoes, the broken bottles, the toys, the bits of glass that she was picking up. Wow, you've done a great job picking up this trash. I'm not just cleaning, Wanda said. I have to get rid of all this trash so my rose bush will get sun and fresh air and can bloom. What rose bush? Mrs. Giamatti put her hand on Wanda's shoulder and said, Wanda, this is not a rose bush. Oh, but it is, said Wanda. And in a few weeks, you just wait. This lot's going to be filled with the sweetest smelling roses that you ever saw. That would be nice, Mrs. Giamatti said, but I don't want you to be disappointed. Don't worry, Mrs. Giamatti, I won't be. And Mrs. Giamatti sighed. That's not a rose bush, and it's never gonna be one. Now, the next week, when the rose bush, surprise, still wasn't blooming, Wanda talked to her school librarian. I need books about getting roses to bloom. You have a rose bush? Asked Miss Jones. Yeah, but it doesn't have any flowers yet, and I know it has sun, and I know it has air. What else does a plant need? Does it have water? Miss Jones asked. Water, Wanda said. Of course, that's amazing. So that afternoon, Wanda hurried to the rose bush, and it was still bare and thorny. She looked at the dry ground, and she smiled because water was going to fix it. Don't worry, little bush, she said out loud. I'm going to get you some water. Then you're going to grow those flowers. And Wanda went to the butcher shop across the street and asked Mr. Sanchez for some water. Mr. Sanchez said, Rose bush? What rose bush? Is that what I have seen you talking to every day over there? I don't think it's a rose bush. Yes, it is, Wanda said. It can't bloom because it doesn't have any water. Mr. Sanchez gave her water in a plastic bucket. I hope that really is a rose bush, Wanda. But he looked doubtful. You'll see, Wanda said. In a few weeks, that lot's going to be full of roses. And as she carried the water away, Mr. Sanchez muttered, in a few weeks, that thorn bush is still going to be a thorn bush. But every day, Wanda ran to the rose bush after school, and every day it was bare and thorny. She watered it. She sang to it. She checked the bare branches for roses. Mr. Claudel stopped to see. Mrs. Turner stopped. Mrs. Giamatti would call down from her apartment and ask if there were any flowers. When Wanda went to the library, Miss Jones asked, were there any roses? And every day, Mr. Sanchez asked if there were any roses yet, and to each person, Wanda said the same thing. Just you wait. Pretty soon, the whole lot's going to be full of roses. And then one day in June, Wanda had an idea. If the rose bush wasn't going to give her roses, she was going to give roses to the rose bush. And when she saw everyone, she gave them an invitation that said, "Please come for tea and muffins in Wanda's rose garden on Saturday." "Oh dear," said Mrs. Turner. "Oh no," said Mr. Claudel. "Oh my," said Mrs. Giamatti. "Oh darn," said Mr. Sanchez. "Oh good," said Miss Jones. She was the only one who hadn't seen the bush. "I'll bring the muffins." So the night before the tea party, everyone was very busy. And the next morning at 9 a.m., everyone was surprised to see Wanda's rose bush covered with roses. Paper roses that Wanda had made herself and carefully tied to each bare, thorny branch. But more surprising yet, everyone who came to the party had brought along a rose bush to plant near Wanda's, except Miss Jones, who brought the delicious blueberry muffins. And after they had eaten their muffins and drunk their tea, they all got busy planting rose bushes. Mr. Claudel and Mrs. Turner dug the holes. Mrs. Giamatti held the bush in place. Miss Jones filled in around the roots. Mr. Sanchez kept bringing more and more water from his shop. When the work was finished, Mr. Claudel said, "Wanda, this is a rose garden fit for a king." "Or a queen," said Mrs. Turner. And later that summer, guess what? That lot was full of the biggest, most beautiful, sweetest smelling roses that anyone had ever seen, exactly as Wanda had said. And what about hers? Hers was a thorn bush. Does a thorn bush have flowers? It does sometimes, if you tie paper ones to it. Okay, so if you tie paper roses to a thorn bush, it'll have flowers. But Wanda was convinced that lot was going to be full of roses. And was it?
Yes.
Yeah, but what filled it with roses? The other people bringing rose bushes. So that's what I love about this story, and that's what I love about flower communion. Sometimes, I know the cat is rolled up in the roses, right? Sometimes we think flower communion is about bringing lovely flowers to church and then taking home a different one, and isn't that kind of fun? Which it is. It's fun and it's beautiful. But flower communion is really about all of us and what we can accomplish and what we can create and the beauty that we make when we come together. So we're going to stay right here together and listen to our choir sing.
Singer of song,
may leave for classes. And I invite you now into this time of giving and receiving, where we give freely and generously to our offering, which this week is dedicated in its entirety to our partner church program. Through your gifts, we will be able to continue supporting our partner congregation in the village of Nagyajta. We have been partnered with them since 1992. And that relationship is pure and utter joy and magic. If you'd like to know more about the congregation in Nagyajta or our partner church program, there's a table directly across from the auditorium. Margie will be there after service and would love to talk with you about that. Your gifts help us to continue supporting scholarships for high school students in the village. There is no high school in Nagyajta, and so the students attend a boarding school for their area, and room and board can be prohibitive for many in the village. Our financial support is a great relief to those families. Your gifts also help us support the congregation's music program, as well as educational field trips for the children of the parish. And just in case you need extra incentive of cuteness, every year at Christmas, they get chocolates and an orange from us. It's the best thing ever. So there's multiple ways to share your gifts. There's baskets being passed here in the auditorium, and you'll see on the screen that you can donate directly from our website, fusmadison.org, and you'll see the text to give information there as well. We thank you for your generosity and your faith in this life we create together.
It is said that the teacher Jesus said, "Consider the lilies of the field and how they grow. They never work nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not clothed like one of these." It's a very common thing to think of flowers in this way, as things that are beautiful for the sake of being beautiful and for no other reason at all. But the qualities of flowers that we might think of as empty beauty, their colors and fragrances, actually serve important functions. By being colorful and smelly, flowers attract animals, and those animals spread the pollen from those flowers around, and that helps to make more flowers grow. The lilies of the field are actually working quite hard. Their prettiness has a purpose. Now, some of the native peoples of Australia tell a story about a time when all the flowers disappeared and the fields and hillsides were bare. It was a terrible loss, not only because all of that natural beauty was gone, but also because the bees left along with the flowers, and that meant that there was no more honey to be found. The children were particularly upset by this. So the elders went on a long journey, and they found their way up into heaven, into the sky. That place was filled with flowers blooming everywhere. They returned to earth with some of those flowers from heaven and planted them here. And everything that blossoms and blooms came from this. What is true for flowers and plants is true for all that lives. Everything owes itself to something that came before. Today, we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the flower communion, this ritual of bringing flowers to church and exchanging them, because of Norbert Čapek. Norbert was the founder of the Unitarian Church of Prague in what was then Czechoslovakia. He devised this ritual to feed the religious impulse of his congregation, that dimension of the human spirit that is fed by ritual and symbol. And he did this somewhat against their own inclination. Most of them had had enough of traditional religion and were content to hear him give moral and philosophical lectures each week. But Norbert believed his people needed habits and practices to share in and to shape their community. In its origin, this ceremony was a fine illustration of the two guiding and forever intertwined themes of our tradition: love and reason. Norbert created the flower celebration, that's the technically accurate translation of the Czech name, as a ritual expression of love. The way that we put love into practice in community by welcoming, accepting, and supporting each other. And how the experience of this collective practice of love trains and strengthens and emboldens us to live more compassionate and loving lives. But he arrived at the necessity for this new ritual and crafted its contours and details through reason. To speak to a largely irreligious, even anti-religious audience, it needed to be simple and modest and cleared of any obvious connection to the practices of the dominant faith in his country. The task of religious community, as Norbert understood it, must be to place communion is a reminder, therefore, that love and reason are necessary complements to each other. Reason gives us tools to put love into practice and critical thought to help us recognize where we have confused custom, sentimentality, or prejudice with love. And reason and love supplies purpose to the practice of reason and serves as a corrective where precedent, preference, or prejudice, again, are misrepresented as the inevitable products of reason. Thousands of miles and a century away from that beginning, most Unitarian Universalist congregations in North America hold some version of this ritual in the spring or early summer every year. The practice is almost a miniature dramatization of how we function as a spiritual community. Each of us lives in the world with our own stories and experiences. We gain from our living fragments of wisdom and insight, small and beautiful. Coming together into a congregation, these pieces form a great bouquet, a rich mixture of color and shape. There's collective beauty that deepens the value of each individual blossom. Then, as we set out to return to our separate places, we take with us new insight, new beauty, new flowers. This week I watched an interview with the Reverend Dr. Peter Samosky, who leads the Unitarian congregation in Prague that Norbert and Maya Čapek founded and served. In the talk, he discussed the current practices of the flower celebration in that congregation. He mentioned the diversity of acceptable offerings for that ceremony each year, including hand-drawn images of flowers. He also mentioned the one year where someone brought a cake with a flower on it as their contribution to the ceremony. He likes to make sure that there are always a few thistles in amongst the blossoms. Religious communities should not harm the people who join them, but they are meant to challenge, and they can occasionally be prickly. This reminded me of my own attempt in early childhood to test the boundaries of the ritual. Now, no one learns the rules better than a person who is bound and determined to trouble the authority behind those rules. So I can still quote to you the exact language used by the congregation of my childhood in the annual invitation to the flower communion. Please bring with you to church a flower or other object of natural beauty. Yeah, you see the problem here. I went out into the backyard of my childhood home on Sunday morning, and I dug around in the dirt for a little while, leaning heavily on a generous interpretation of what might constitute an other object of natural beauty. At that time and in that place, it was the custom of the congregation to hold the ceremony outdoors in the church's memorial garden. We all set our flowers or other objects on the low stone wall that marked that space as a place of memory. I received very mild questioning from my parents, but they never attempted to stop or discourage me. Beyond that, I recall no comments and no looks of judgment or dismay. My gift was accepted just as readily as anyone else's. So it was that year, in amongst all those beautiful blossoms, there sat a small, plain stone, and atop it, the very largest slug that I could find. Among the members of any community that welcomes difference, there will come up from time to time a determination to be different purely to test the limits of that welcome. And so long as that testing does not somehow veer into actual harm, the lesson taught to the would-be transgressor by accepting it can be a lasting one indeed. Now, in a greenhouse or a garden, flowers grow on command, or at least the will of some human being is among their prerequisites. A total lack of skill at horticulture, such as I possess, may prevent them from growing, but the reverse is not true. No gift or merit will cause a neat and ordered garden to spring up for you. It takes effort. In the wild, however, things are different. The unpredictable, anarchic paintbrush of petals drips its color wherever windblown seeds and unseen shoots find purchase. Sometimes this makes for a good home, enough sun, enough water, little danger to new growth. Sometimes it does not. But wildflowers, such as the lilies of the field, for instance, are tenacious. They appear and return again and again in the most desolate and improbable places. In the ashen wake of a forest fire, in the jagged crack in a patch of asphalt, on a scrap of earth only briefly beyond the reach of the sea. Flowers bloom. One may wither or choke, but others will spring forth thereafter. Norbert Čapek created the ritual we celebrate this day, but if it had only been for him, we would not be practicing it now. Norbert believed in the dignity and value of all human beings and the rights of all people to live and live free. In Central Europe, at the outbreak of World War II, such ideas became things that one could be arrested, jailed, or even killed for. Sometimes in this world, it can be a dangerous thing to bloom, to show forth who and what you are, to grow into the fullest expression of your own true self. People won't always like your colors, and some of them may decide that they don't like you. So it was with Norbert. While he did not survive the war, his wife, Maya, a minister herself, did. She was traveling in the United States when the war broke out, and she couldn't return, so she spent her time rallying support for her country and building connections with American Unitarians. She is the one who taught this ritual to the first of our churches in this country. Each year, the practice renews, like a blooming perennial, and it was Maya who first scattered the seeds. In the Gospel according to Matthew, the teacher Jesus makes his point about the lilies of the field by asking, if this is how God clothes the grass, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how much more will God clothe you? The beauty and tenacity of flowers prompts us with a similar question. If this is how bold and determined a frail, delicate plant is prepared to be, how much more should I be willing to risk myself in order to be myself? We human beings blossom when we are our best selves, when we live and love and work and dream and believe according to what is most true in us. Not because it makes us indestructible, it doesn't. Not because there is no risk involved, there is. Not because it is easy, but because it is hard. Because without our determination to unfold our lives despite the costs, there would be less color and less fragrance and less beauty in the world. Like everything else that lives, we are here to grow. And still, the world that holds such wonder, possibility, and determination, so many beautiful people and things determined to grow in this world, war still persists. People give themselves over to hate and fear of their fellow human beings. We waste and deface the wonder of the planet of which we are a part. We fall out of love and we break each other's hearts. The beauty which suffuses the world does not cancel out the horror or the grief which is also in it. Nothing can. A loss is still a loss. A wrong is still a wrong. A death is still a death. And yet, wonder and awe remain persistent. The obstinate beauty of the earth refuses to yield. Like the poppies growing among the graves in Flanders Field in John McCrae's famous poem. Like the lilies of the field that the teacher Jesus taught were the regal clothing provided by a generous God to the humble soil of the earth. Beauty refuses to concede to woe and wrong, and it is from our natural response and adoration for the beauty that our own resistance to that which is not right innately flows. More than 100 years ago, the poet Gerard Manley Hopkins wrote, "Glory be to God for dappled things, for skies of couple color as a brindled cow, for rose moles all in stipple upon trout that swim, fresh fire-coal chestnut falls, finches' wings, landscape plotted and pieced, fold, fallow, and plow, and all trades their gear and tackle and trim, all things counter, original, spare, strange. Whatever is fickle, freckled, who knows how, with swift, slow, sweet, sour, adazzle, dim, he fathers forth whose beauty is past change. Praise him." Now, whether you conceive of God as a loving father or as an adoring, gender-fluid parent, as a teacher or a friend, as a force or as a spirit, or as just another name for love itself, I offer you this same theme. There is too much in the world that is beautiful for the ugliness of evil, real and powerful though it may be, to ever drive it fully out. Wherever we falter in our loving, wherever we fail in our duty to be compassionate and kind, it is always where we have lost sight, somehow, of the beauty which surrounds us and is expressed in our very bodies and minds. You will leave this place with a flower today. That flower will not last, as it was never meant to. But its lesson is yours to keep. The beauty of the universe persists, determined despite all odds and counter-arguments. Therefore, let your natural appreciation for what is beautiful in the world allow you to love it, and to love it enough to work for its repair.
Move with grace, the shivering of the aspen tree.
Thank you, Peyton. And we want to say a special thanks. This is Peyton's last weekend with us. Peyton's been singing in the choir here since kindergarten, 13 years ago. And now, as she heads off to UW Stevens Point to study environmental science, she will keep singing with a minor in music, vocal performance, and we're very excited to see where the years take her, and we're going to miss you so very much. Each week, we gather here bringing our joys and our losses, all the cares of recent days and weeks. We share them here, knowing they are held in love. Today, we light a candle of joy and celebration for the Reverend Karen Bringleson, our former intern minister. Karen has been called to be the next settled minister of People's Church Unitarian Universalist in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. She and her wife, Bev Burr, will move there in July. And we send our love and congratulations to Karen and Bev and to the members of People's Church for a long and fruitful ministry together. And we light a candle of memory and sorrow for Larry Pepper, the father of Terry Pepper. Larry passed away on May 18th. Terry tells us he was very much himself right up until the end, making his own decisions and remaining his calm and kind self. We know that Terry and her mom and her wife, Rachel Avery, and their whole family are missing Larry and his kind, gentle spirit, and we send them our love as they grieve his passing. And we light a candle of gratitude and sorrow for the life of Lynn Bliss Replinger, the sister of Gail Bliss, who passed away on May 15th after living well for 4.5 years with metastatic breast cancer. Lynn's life was one of courage and dedication, and her family is deeply missing her, and they know now that they carry her spirit within them. Our love is with Gail and her family. And we light a candle for Penny as she undergoes surgery just across the street. We wish for her good care and swift healing. And we light a candle to mourn the violence in our world, here in our own nation and around the globe. We know there are never enough candles to symbolize the pain, hold the anger, and cradle the tears. May this light fuel our passion for change and our hunger for justice. And we invite you now to join us in a moment of prayer with these words from Claire Feingold Thorne. Let us give thanks for a bouquet of people. We give thanks for children who, like tulips and iris, multiply around us, making the world ever more filled with color, beauty, and new life. May we bless them as they replant themselves ever further from us, knowing that they need their own space to grow. We give thanks for generous friends, as constant in bloom as echinacea, and whose gifts lift up our body and spirit. We give thanks for feisty friends, as indomitable as geraniums, and for continuous friends who, like bittersweet and ivy, hold on and never let go, and can never be gotten rid of. For crotchety friends, as prickly as rose bushes, their beauty a secret that is only discovered through careful gardening. For surprising friends who at first glance seem dour and then blossom into joy as quickly as forsythia. For funny friends, silly as snapdragons, and serious friends, complex as chrysanthemums. For comfortable friends, their gentle presence as soothing as the sweet smell of lilacs. For stormy weather friends who stand by us in hard times, like lily of the valley that cannot be deterred by shade or shadow. For old friends nodding like sunflowers in the evening time, and young friends coming on fast as flocks. For friends as unpretentious as dogwood, as persistent as pachysandra, as steadfast as azalea, and who like snowdrops can be counted on to see you through the winter and remind you that spring always comes. For loving friends who wind around us like wisteria and embrace us despite our blights, wilts, and witherings. And finally, for forget-me-not friends, gone but never forgotten. Their beauty lives on in our memories and hearts. For this bouquet of people who brighten our lives each in their own way, we give thanks. Amen.
There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all we rest in this love. Please rise in all the ways that we do to join us for our closing hymn number 76, For Flowers That Bloom About Our Feet. For flowers that bloom about our feet, for tender grass so fresh and sweet, for song of bird and hum of bee, for all things fair we hear or see. Giver of all, we thank thee. For blue of stream and blue of sky, for pleasant shade of branches high, for fragrant air and cooling breeze, for beauty of the blooming trees. Giver of all, we thank thee. For this new morning with its light, for rest and shelter of the night, for health and food, for love and friends, for everything thy goodness sends. Giver of all, we thank thee.
May we remain always mindful of how radical and powerful love is, how dangerous those who use fear to build power know love to be, how necessary and essential the spirit and struggle for universal love, for human dignity, for reverence for life, every life, all creation remains, always. As we go forth today, remember, we are among the keepers of this flame. Blessed be, go in peace, and please be seated for the postlude.
In the quiet, misty morning, when the moon has gone to bed, when the sparrows glitter singing, and the sky is clear and red,
When the summer ceased its gleaming, when the corn is past its prime, when adventure's lost its meaning, I'll be homeward bound in time. Bind me not to the pasture, chain me not to the plow.
return to you somehow. If you find it's me you're missing, if you're hoping I'll return to your thoughts, I'll soon be listening. In the road I'll stop and turn, then the wind will set me racing as my journey nears its end, and the path I'll be retracing when I'm homeward bound again. Bind me not to the pasture, chain me not to the plow, set me free to find my calling. I'll return to you somehow. In the quiet, misty morning, when the moon has gone to bed, when the sparrows stop their singing, I'll be